Hello and welcome to my AstroCast. I am Heather Rowan Robbins. I'm author of Starcodes book, uh, Oracle, and the weekly article. I've started this monthly AstroCast to help you navigate this astrological moment in time. My guests and I will talk about the astrological patterns on a practical level, on a mythic spiritual level, and on the political level. And we will also get the chance to share observations and gems from their journey. As we speak astrology with each other, I hope these symbols become more transparent and available to you. It's an empowering language, and I want it to be yours. I want to welcome here a dear friend, um, Caroline Casey. We have been talking this conversation for 3 decades. As she was the first astrologer that I met that really looked at the astrological language as the connection point between the mythical world, the political world, the personal world, and our spiritual journey, that they weave together. And she also has been, astrologer of great standing, and with a radio show for 28 plus years from California. You want to tell us about Visionary Activist Radio, Caroline?
Excuse me?
Tell us about your radio show.
Yes. Well, it started on a Mercury retrograde, and it's going 28 years. So it started when Democracy Now! Started. I like to quip that it's Democracy Now! On mushrooms. So it started off as anything we need to know to have a democracy, and critique and solution. Here's a problem. Here's people doing cool stuff. But also weaving the astrological, mythological into the political, into the personal. Because my favorite thing when doing readings and everything is, to put somebody's individual chart, everybody listening, in the center, and then everything that's going on around them. Because everything in the world, it's an exquisite language of our personal psyche, separated by a thin membrane we call identity from the whole huge conversation. So everything going on in the world is microed into us in some way. So we're all in this dream together. And I do like, we'll get into everything. I like saying, right now especially, it's not what's going to happen, it's what's the assignment and what's available with which to cooperate, right? So cooperators are standing by, and so we'll get into that with the diagnosis, the critique, the disaster, which means against the stars, and then the consider, which means with the stars, and then the guiding, like how do we cooperate with this? What wants to happen? Yeah.
Right. And what a turning point in time this is. As we look at the chart for tonight, this will be on Wednesday, so this will be the night before, we're talking about a turning point in history that's setting against the backdrop of huge solar flares, which are keeping the pot stirred up, the volume up on all these aspects, because the sun acts like the rheostat dial for the rest of the aspects. And at a time when 4 major outer planets are changing signs all within 2 years, going back and forth a bit, and the Pluto has already switched into Aquarius, Saturn and Neptune are about to go into Aries this spring. They'll back up in the fall and then go back in. And Uranus is heading into Gemini. So there's a huge amount of change in a short period of time. That's going to be a change in leadership and a change in our views. And that's the backdrop. And in the shorter term, last weekend, Mars, who is in its fall, and I want to hear Caroline talk about planets in their fall, but the term isn't its fall because it's the sign opposite the one where it is exalted in Cancer, and it has been retrograde, and Mars now turns direct. At the same time, Aries, Venus, which has been in Aries, opposite the sign it rules, is now about to turn retrograde. So tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on being in fall and being.
I think part of our dance, and we'll get to everybody in the outer planets, really represent huge forces of nature's intelligence and keepers of the whole big conversation, cultural and biological, as they dance with us. So and then all of them, but these are deconditioning deconditioning. We're in this huge deconditioning,
Mm-hmm.
changing our minds, changing identities. So Mars in Cancer, I get suspicious and I go, deconditioning astrology. Why should Mars, woofiness, be in
Mm-hmm.
any way dissed in its fall in Cancer, the sign of nourishing and all of the good things associated with husbandry and cooking soups and history? History is the womb of time. And I looked
Mm-hmm.
at many, many charts of great historians and great people doing wonderful things and providing nourishment for the world. And I go, I think that's colonial. I think it's an assignment, not a kind of same with Venus, stationing in Aries at 10 Aries, which is ruler of a nation. And it's kind of so Mars goes into the moon, is in the moon sign, and Venus goes into Mars sign. We go, yeah, woofy leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. And we'll honor the dance, so much. But I wanted to start off with, some deconditioning good news too. So many people dedicated for decades for Leonard Peltier's freedom, and in my own trickster astrology councils, we were like doing what we could, seeing him walking home. We must be. Mars in Cancer wants us all to be protectors, and this last
Mm-hmm.
retrograde
Mm-hmm.
also was to go into our own personal history and every chapter of our life, kind of reporting in, which is why I've changed how I describe myself. I now describe myself as an entheo astro animist, but it's like, just put all the words together of the
Yeah.
chapters of your life, and and researching, the retrograde of this last month or more, researching, because family is interesting. So my bloodline is related to grumpy Thomas Dudley, the second governor of Massachusetts, who was a grumpy guy who kicked Roger Williams out because Roger Williams wanted to cooperate with the indigenous people. But
Mm-hmm.
his offspring, I have to track it, is his daughter Anne Bradstreet, the poet, and my sister, who's had sent me her astrological poetry. Anne Bradstreet,
Mm.
she wrote beautiful about February and about midwinter, and she and her husband wrote love letters to each other in astrology.
Ah.
So for
Ah.
everybody, you reach back and you go, all right, we're all heretics. Who's the heretic lineage in your family, that wants to bubble up through you? It's like the Yoruba saying, the ancestors have sent us to complete their work, and we go, okay, we get handed the baton. And then Mars stationing, when a planet stations, it looks to us on Earth like it's spending a lot of time at one particular degree,
Mm-hmm.
and it really wants our attention and our dedication. And so I am intrigued that Mars forms what's called Thor's hammer, meaning it has a 135-degree angle of sesquiquadrat to the asteroid Juno, which is about everyone playing their role. And on the other side, Mars forms a 135-degree angle sesquiquadrat to Ceres Demeter, dwarf planet, goddess of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a
Mm-hmm.
square
Mm-hmm.
between them. So my friend Sylvia taught me that it's Thor's hammer, and at first I thought, couldn't we find a jollier name for that pattern? But then I went searching online. Thor's
Freya's
hammer.
slingshot. You know it. Sorry. Go ahead.
So Thor's hammer, and everybody gets a metaphoric party prize, right? And everybody gets a magic backpack, and all kinds of things in your magic backpack, bags of liberating lightning. But everybody gets Thor's hammer. Thor's hammer was the capacity to sweep corruption out of the halls of governance. It's like,
Oh, I
okay,
love that.
everybody, This is a time. We underestimated the Dementors. I did, running
Mm-hmm.
Election Magic Council, and I actually think Kamala Harris won, but we underestimated the inquisitional. We've outsourced Saturn leadership to this Inquisition oligarchy hybrid, right? But then there's a part of us, Venus in Aries, I think, says we've been through Inquisitions, we know a
Mm-hmm.
thing or two, and Venus in Aries says it's about being woofy.
Mm-hmm.
I love. Do you know the movie Dangerous Beauty?
No, I don't.
Okay, it's a really good one for Venus and Aries for
It's
all of us.
Venus and Aries. Perfect. Yes. Dangerous
So,
beauty.
so yeah, Dangerous Beauty. It's about a real woman, Veronica Franco, who was a poet and a courtesan in Venice. So
Mm-hmm.
throughout
Mm-hmm.
history, we see women, under tight constraint, but finding areas of freedom. So she was a courtesan and a poet, and she's one of the very few women we know of who was accused of witchcraft by the Inquisition and who beat the rap. And she beats the rap, and here's all of us put this in our magic backpack by going not calm, but woofy. She
Mm-hmm.
stands defiant in front of the Inquisition. And she says, all my life, I will never succumb to the worst fate that can befall a woman, which is to be of utter inconsequence. And
Beautiful.
it's her woofiness that inspires the otherwise cowardly men of Venice, of prominence, all of whom she slept with, the bishop and the mayor and whatever, to overcome their fear
Mm-hmm.
and back her up, causing the Inquisition to say the entire city of Venice is damned, and we're packing our bags and leaving, causing the entire city of Venice to go, Carnival, Carnival. Um,
Is that where
the,
it started?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because Innocent Aries says, what is unique in all of us to the woman hero or the liberating folk hero? The woman hero is interested in liberating women, liberating men, liberating the land, liberating even the tyrant, not counting on it, but liberating the atmosphere that gave rise to the thing. So,
Mm.
and liberates the community. So
Mm-hmm.
Veronica
Mm-hmm.
Franco did that. She, by being woofy, she liberated the entire city of Venice to transform from Inquisition to Carnival. And we might put several drops of that in, as you listen to and continue to listen. To wonderful Heather, just every now and then something you like, just put 2 drops in your tea, going, all right, 2 drops of
Two drops
Veronica
of
Frankel,
woofiness. Yep.
two
Beautiful.
drops of woofiness, how to cooperate.
I
Um,
think the governor of Maine standing up and is she's really holding some of that energy. She's doing Venus and Aries fiercely right now, beautifully.
and Mars has the Thor's hammer, but also Mars stationing, trining Saturn. Um, so it's to plight our trough, to
Mm-hmm.
make our
Mm-hmm.
dedication, to be Mars Cancer protectors.
Mm-hmm.
Protectors. And going back in history, I'm so in love with David Graeber's book, The Dawn of Everything, which he wrote
Mm.
for 10. Did you know? Do you know this book? Yeah,
It's on my list of things to go explore. Yes, go ahead.
it's on Audible as well. But
I'll get it.
he wrote it with incredible Saturn dedication.
Mm-hmm.
It's the history of human community, egalitarian to authoritarian, from the Pleistocene to now, and his dedication. He spent 10 years writing it and he died before it was published. So we go, thank you. Is to always remember that human society has always had the capacity to change in an instant, in a Uranus instant, from authoritarian to egalitarian. And he gives many great examples. And of course goes back to, you know, the origins of democracy, right? So the US Pluto 27 Capricorn, 27 plus Capricorn, Venus is quintile that. I love quintiles, irresistible eloquence. My friend Sylvia says, and the capacity to open portals between worlds.
And
So it's like
quintiles are what degrees? How many degrees?
72, 72.
72.
Yeah, they're my favorite thing if one is allowed to have favorite things. Yeah, well, because it's a capacity to have a true
Mm-hmm.
perception and not have to convince anybody, which is conquer, but to be like
Mm-hmm.
a tuning fork in that it hums in others. So they might say, "Oh, Heather, since I heard you, I see that now," right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
really guiding people to their own autonomy, so it's really clean.
It's
And
one edge of the pentagram around the zodiac.
yeah, and then also the capacity to open portals between worlds. And I go, and if it's not true, let's make it true. Come on in. So Venus, her Sabian symbol, images
Mm-hmm.
for each degree of the zodiac, is ruler of a nation. She's quintiling the U.S. Pluto, and it's like, and she's about to retrograde,
Beautiful.
going on a quest, and about to go to the underworld and return as the Morning Star, which is a big, huge, interesting thing. Yeah, so she doesn't usually the the Venus cycle, and people can see Venus after sunset, really, really bright.
She is so bright right now.
And I loved Dennis Harness, a Vedic astrologer that I had a consult with recently, and he said, in Vedic, retrograde planets are more powerful because they're closer to the Earth. I'm like, oh, that's fun to change our minds around there. But so everything Venus, and so as she prepares to descend, she's the evening star, and will get, as she gets close to the sun, her retrograde motion, she will
Mm-hmm.
disappear. She will disappear, right? And I had the date. Oh, I think it's by March, right around the equinox. she disappears from the evening sky, always poignant, and goes into invisibility. And then usually she spends 40
40
days
days.
in the
Mm-hmm.
underworld, but she can't leave
Could
us
feel like 40 years.
unsupervised, right? So she returns um, as the morning star,
Right.
and this is really important. So Venus in the West is Inanna. In Mesoamerica, it's Quetzalcoatl, and every culture has paid attention to the Venus cycle because usually it's like she will be the evening star for 9 months, then get close to the sun, disappear for usually 40 days, but this time it's only like 9 days, and then reemerge as the morning star. And the Quetzalcoatl myth is about leadership. Quetzalcoatl is a pretty good leader, but Tezcatlipoca, the Lord of the Smoking Mirror, says, "Drink this balche, drink this intoxicant. You'll feel much better and sexier too. You'll feel." So he does. He drinks it, and he makes deals with corporations, and he sleeps with his
Mm-hmm.
daughter, and I mean, it really, and wakes up going, "Oh, I've really messed up," and he goes away. Goes away, and the
Mm-hmm.
culture would understand it as this is time to redefine leadership. Goes away, and then coming back as the morning star, called the heliacal rise, when Venus, people would wait for this, wait, and it was a historical oops that Cortez arrives on that day, and they mistake the man for the myth. Always a
Ah,
mistake. Always a
always
mistake.
a mistake.
And I was covering for Pacifica, my radio network. I get to be the astro mythological news, and so I was covering both the conventions in 2016 and during the Republican convention. It was when Venus was returning, and it's like, oh no, they're mistaking Trump for Quetzalcoatl. It's like either we know the myths and we can participate, or if we don't know them, we're possessed. So they were like,
Mm.
"Oh, it's like no, it's a Cortez thing. No, terrible." Um, but in the Inanna
Mm-hmm.
version, many ways to tell all the stories, right? She goes to the underworld, many ways to tell that. Some say compelled, some say by choice, but she's gathering energy for a cultural renaissance. And when she returns and is the morning star, like, oh, she's back. Um, the Sumerian poetry is very racy and trippy. Um, well, one thing is the deal is cut that she can return to the overworld as long as she sends down a replacement. And she gets
Mm-hmm.
back and goes, everyone was worried about me and greeted me with joy, except my
My
lover,
husband.
except
Right.
my boyfriend, right? Yeah, Dumuzi, he's wearing his fine clothes. He does not, and she goes, I wonder
And
who
he's
I'll
sitting
send.
on her throne. Right.
Wait, right. I wonder who I'll send down. Ha ha ha. So Jungians take this as, men learn to go to a deep place, women are coming back, which is kind of, now-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
then
respect other people's process, or you have to learn the hard way yourself.
that's good too. Right. And then the Sumerian poetry is very trippy. It says one day she's recovering from her intense journey, and it says she's contemplating the wonders of her own vulva and going, oh, it is so great to be a woman, whether you have a partner or not. And the idea occurs to her. Here comes Uranus awakening. She goes, I know for my overland adventure, I'm going to rescue human culture. And human culture has been stolen by Enki, the god of wisdom, who has become a tyrant. So it's very sophisticated of the
Mm-hmm.
Sumerians to say anyone unchallenged will become a tyrant. So I think Venus and Aries says,
Oh
challenging
boy,
people.
is she acting that out now.
Well, how so?
We have a tyrant who is trying to
Yes.
steal the culture
Yeah.
and
Right.
who has, quite
Well,
literally taken over the Kennedy Center and is working on
and canceled
soaking up
the gay
all.
men's chorus, and there's no small or large churlish cruelty that they're not prone to, the
Mhm,
Dementors. But yeah, no, it really, really tracks, which is why the myths are really guiding and important, and they're
mhm,
back.
mhm.
All the myths that ever were or will be are here now. Um, so she goes, all right. So Enki, the god of wisdom, who's become a tyrant because he wasn't challenged, stolen human culture, and they really say, and left empty celebrity baubles in its place. They really, 2,500 years ago, they put it that way. So Inanna sets forth with her best girlfriend in their little round coracle boat to sail to Enki's island, and being a woman hero, or a Venusian hero, everybody's welcome. It's all in all of us. She doesn't go grr. She gets him
Mm-hmm.
drunk on beauty and poetry. And as he
Mm-hmm.
gets drunk on beauty and poetry, he gives back to her what he's stolen, parts of human culture called mies. And interestingly, the first thing he gives back to her is the erotic arts. I give to you the erotic arts, and then astrology and science and real estate and knitting.
Mm.
What she puts it all in her boat, and she sets forth. And Enki wakes up in the morning going, where's human culture? And his assistant says, you got drunk. You got out drunk on beauty. And there's Inanna with her friend and her little coracle on the horizon,
Mm-hmm.
her little round boat. So he does send demons after her, right? But she's so pumped up, and this can be all of us, with the success and the friendship that she fends them off with laughter and alacrity. And that's how
Mm.
Venus brings culture back to humans, and then they can have a wise renaissance of humans humbly cooperating with nature's guiding genius. Yes, there we go.
Yes, what a beautiful parable for this time.
Yeah, no, this is it. Again, this is part of the way. Don't mistake the man for the myth, or any human. Trust plants, not gurus,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, yeah. So
I
so
want to take one point back to the interesting at this time when transgender work is being so horrified, so attacked, that we have Venus in a fierce sign normally connected with being very masculine energy, and Mars in a sign that at its highest is a nurturing sign. I remember Rob Hand talking about planets being out when they are in their fall or detriment, just means they're not following the menu. They're not fitting in normal, easy societal constructs where the train lines run clearly. This is a time to reinvent and reconnect. It is a time when the idea that we all are multi-gendered beings. Each planet has multi-gendered sides. There is no the gender polarity is a mythology, and that we can bring in that fierce Aries, Venus and Aries energy to bring civilization back. And I do see the artists as being, the first edge of the revolution that we see coming. The
yeah,
artist has to come and turn that mindset around in the country
the
to
artist,
revivify it.
the satirist,
Mm-hmm.
all the planets, really represent living qualities of intelligence that reside within us and connect us to the world. So as we mention them, feel them. Everybody can feel them stirring inside, going, "Ooh!" So everybody's got a
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter, everybody's got a Mars, a woofiness, their own customized one, but then the collective one. So yeah, Jupiter and Gemini quintiles Neptune for the launch of your podcast. I love this quintile. All right,
I love
so
that quintile.
it's a happy relationship between Jupiter and Gemini, also in its fall or detriment, right? And it's like, no, it's just an assignment to say big things in a podcast, right? To say big Jupiterian things in a Gemini network conversational way. And one of the things I love about David Graeber's work as a historian, and his chart is all coming alive. Even when people
Mm-hmm.
are dead,
Mm-hmm.
their charts really hum.
Oh, it does.
Is one of the things I love most is in the Democracy Project, which is on Audible. He's talking to activists, Tahrir Square in Egypt activists. And so as tyranny was coming down on, this is all pertinent, on Gemini, like press and media and things. And the activists said, if they called for a demonstration, 300 people showed up. They were like, oh, if 3,000 people showed up, they were like, oh, pretty good. But there was censorship coming down. But they noticed, here we go, they noticed that their cab drivers were very talkative, and autonomous. It's my cab. I can say anything I want. So all the activists got into different cabs in Cairo, and they said to their cab drivers, I hear there's a gathering in Tahrir Square at 4 p.m. today. 500,000 people showed up because of the cab drivers. So
Ah.
they took on the Jupiter Gemini. They took on the
Mm-hmm.
messenger function. So it's tyranny comes down. You could go, oh no, or you could go, ingenuity, cab drivers, mycelial, based on, if it
Yeah, I
goes
love
up,
that.
it's going to come back down, right? You know, um, the MSNBC just fired Joy Reid, one of their few black
Mm-hmm.
commentators. She was really growing on me doing in Black History Month, and they fired all of their black and Katie Fang and all their progressive black people. It's like, oh lordy, but you go, okay, podcasts, ingenuity, Jupiter and Gemini, diaspora. You find a form that can't be constrained.
That it's going to completely reinvent it.
Yeah. So it's.
I think that what we're doing in so many ways in America is making ourselves irrelevant to the next round unless we revivify it.
Wait,
And one of the charts we wanted to look at also
Hmm.
is our Pope,
Oh
who
yes,
is
we do.
you
Well,
know.
I wanted to say just one more
Mhm.
thing about
Oh, yes, please.
walking Leonard Peltier home safe,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
To and to add to what you were saying too about, and quoting Rob Hand, may he be praised, the longtime ally Grump. Um,
Yes,
you know,
definitely. He's both.
um,
Hmm.
is but that the word heretic was a term of praise, even in the early Abrahamic religions, because it meant cross-pollinating contributor to culture so that knowledge never degraded into dogma or superstition.
Oh, that's
Boy,
beautiful.
that Heather, fill in your name. Boy, it sure is a great heretic. Only later, once there's a priesthood, would it get us killed, right? But it starts off good. So we're heretics, right? And
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's good to kind of embrace that, to be heretics, and the and I think Venus and Aries, Mars and Cancer. I like to say, and yeah, the transgender, the complexity, the fabulous novel, The Man Who Fell in Love with the Moon. I don't know if you know that. It was the most
Hmm.
radical erotic novel I'd ever read, like 20 years ago. Like, wow.
Hmm.
The Bear Dash tradition of the
Hmm.
twin-souled Jupiter and Gemini, the teachings of the twin-souled person. But yes, wherever I was going with that. But um, Jupiter does quintile Neptune for the launch of your podcast and for all of us now. That 72-degree angle of the capacity to communicate big things in a conversational vernacular with cab drivers or whatever. And it's Neptune in Pisces, whose degree is about a vision of unity, a vision of
Hmm.
unity.
Hmm.
So I like to say and Venus and Mars, I prefer to even masculine and feminine, right? Everybody's got a Venus, everybody's got a Mars. They're all unique. They're all on different dance. Um, but women who are just on a simple level, women who are Aries and men who are Cancers, I go, oh, you're doing great work,
Yep.
because a woman Aries has
You're
woman.
diversifying it.
Sorry.
Diversification.
Right, and a woman Aries has wonderfully feminine qualities, um, wolfiness, just rah, 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 rah. Um, and but our culture. Oh, is that? Is that an animal coming in?
That is a dog speaking from the back. Like,
Excellent. That's good.
yes, we have several dogs that are with us today. I've got two dogs on, one
Oh,
on
that's
either
great. No,
side.
no, we needed the dogs, right?
Hmm.
So women Aries are like, feisty and, Veronica
Hmm.
Franco
Hmm.
kind of thing. Um, but those are qualities attributed to men. And Cancer men have all of these feelings, and husbandry. Mars is stirring that up now, and makers of good soup, and Jose Andres, World Kitchen, Cancer,
Oh.
um,
Hmm. Hmm.
wonderful. Um,
Leader.
yeah, all the great, chefs. Anthony Bourdain, Cancer Man, um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and and so I like that they've taken on going more room for everybody, more room for everybody. Let's have woofy women and nurturing soup making guys, and to honor that. So yeah,
That's
tolerance.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. We're talking about Leonard's chart,
Yes.
that he is, we don't have a time for him. So this is, the houses are not necessarily appropriate, but we go for that Virgo with um, the probably Cancer moon and Venus and Mars conjunct in Libra. There was someone who really would, has been striving for um, justice, to equality, the social justice aspect of Libra, which is so powerful and so strong. But with those planets in Virgo, the ability to see the problem and to deal with it and to focus on that. And but I see him really coming alive from the aspects that he's experiencing now.
And I wanted to honor the heretic in him and all of us,
Hmm.
and less, for those who follow astrology, just to to realize it's an assignment, it's not a sentence, you know.
Right.
So when he's released, Saturn in the sky is at 19 degrees of Pisces, and when he was born, his sun is at 19 degrees of Virgo, an exact opposition.
Mm-hmm,
So in the old
mm-hmm,
fogey books would be like, oh no, but then it's like, no, no. You know, if your dedication, if your Saturn
mm-hmm,
dedication is strong, you know, then that's your dance partner, right? And
mm-hmm,
you know, again, you'd read like, oh no, Saturn opposite the sun, you might be terribly depressed, or you might be liberated and go home, right? It's according to your definition, right?
mm-hmm,
And then
mm-hmm.
um yeah,
And he's stepping into his elderhood. He's stepping into his empowerment. He is really, being put in a leadership position now, and that he is out. And I often see that Saturn. I think of Saturn as the martial arts sensei, and he's been handed his black belt. Now go do with it.
yeah. No, that and I was so concerned, which is why I wanted us all to be protectors,
Yes.
lest the churlish eye of Sauron go, and you know, it's like, no, we're imagining, we're engaging. If the Inquisition, and it really is black magic, it's Opus
Mm-hmm,
Dei, the
mm-hmm,
black magic part of the Catholic Church, and Peter
mm-hmm,
Thiel and the
mm-hmm,
AI people and whatever. I mean, Steve Bannon, they practice black magic. I mean, for real.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And the kind of good-hearted team has been woefully ill-prepared for that. So we want to engage all of our skills. Exactly. Dog agrees. Thank you.
mm-hmm.
Woof.
Dog agrees. Right.
We,
Go ahead.
we agree. Woof. What? No, we'd be nothing without dogs. Um, yeah. So envisioning also visionary
Mm-hmm,
activism, the wedding. Um, so we were seeing him protected. Dog agrees.
mm-hmm,
You're doing a great job
mm-hmm.
of protecting us, doggy. That's right. Exactly. You,
Deer walking by the house.
that's right. And you want, and doggy, what's that? You want us to remember the long alliance of humans and wolves, right?
Yes,
Yes.
that's it. That's it. Mm-hmm.
And you want to remind us about the incredibly inspiring model of wolf leadership, don't you? Yes,
Yes.
right. Because I think we get to say, you know, what is unique to our species aside from our bad manners. Um, it's maybe the opportunity, Jupiter, responsibility, Saturn, to borrow qualities of intelligence from the flora, fauna, fungi that we share this earth with. And so wolves, I lived with a part wolf and a half coyote, so I know these people. And so wolves don't operate on dominance. Excuse me. They operate on charisma. And in wolf culture, charisma means who initiates play best.
Mm.
And you can tell the charismatic wolf within 10 days of birth because it's the wolf pup with the lowest resting heartbeat. So I love that as a model of
Oh,
leadership.
that's wonderful.
It's the coolest, calmest wolf who engages the playful ingenuity of the pack. So it's not just play. It's like, let's go hunting, but play.
But that's what leadership is.
Yeah, that's what
It's
leadership
also
is.
usually the wolf is not the one at the front, it's the one protecting the back.
Wait, say that again.
Often in the wolf pack, when you see them walking, the leader will be at the back of the pack, watching and guarding, rather than at the front of the pack necessarily leading which way to go.
Yes. And so again, so the fact that we've have this inquisition on wolves, it's like we're killing our leadership mentors, and we want to be protectors and form an alliance with them. And then I love coyotes. You know, my longest relationship in the world is I lived with Stella Coyote, half coyote, but pretty much coyote for 19 years, 2 months, 2 weeks, 2 days. And wolves and coyotes
Mm.
are breeding now, are
Mm-hmm,
mixing,
mm-hmm.
and as an evolutionary necessity. And I love that too, just to present to us, you know, so because coyotes are like, I
Oh,
mean,
that's going to be
wolves are
really interesting.
well, wolves are very disciplined, right? I mean, they're playful, but
Mm-hmm.
also everybody's got a role. Only two breed, you know, and everybody's got a role. Coyotes, no, mad geniuses. So, so wouldn't it be great, this hybrid mating, you know, for us to have and belong to a supportive wolf pack that encouraged everyone's mad coyote genius?
I love it.
It's like let's
Yes.
see that, that's, and
Well,
that's
and I think that that's going to be the key of Pluto and Aquarius for the next couple of decades. Is the power comes from our pack, our tribe, our group, how we work and interact with others, and whatever level and way we can do that. That's where the individual power to fight is going to be nothing compared to the power that we have when we find like minds and people that we can inspire and play with and work with, the fellow coyote wolves throughout.
Yeah, no, and I really want to expand. We'll bring Uranus into play. I mean, many stationing really important. One of my very coyote raven
Mm-hmm.
heretics. Um, and there's no prison for the unexpected. So I love also language crafting. And Uranus says we are big intelligences dancing with you guys, Gaias. We don't care what you do. We care the manner in which you do it, that it comes from freedom and choice rather than fear. And the same with language. So I am encouraging myself and others to expand our vocabulary beyond the word fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that was magically ineffective about the Harris Walls race. I love them. I love him. I love this. When we fight, we win. It's like, no, obviously not. I like replacing fight with dedicate, outsmart, satirize. I mean, just 20. But dedicate is good. When we dedicate, we win. And I think that's really truer. And because neuroscientists say that when we use the word fight, our brains are symbolic. It cascades a huge amount of adrenaline down. I mean, we get ready to fight, and whatever we say, we get more. Oh, they want fighting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
we'd like more dedication. We'd
Right.
like more
And
dedication.
that definitely fits. My problem with that campaign was the focus on we won't go back, because
Right.
our brain
Yeah.
does not read negatives and only reads we go back. So we have to keep remember, like, it's good to say we won't go back, we're going forward, and this is what we're doing instead. What is our vision? What's our eye? We were talking a little bit earlier on off camera about the Bardo state and our country going through a time of in between lives at the moment, in between chapters in that Bardo state. And we talked about how some of the old traditions around Bardo states, and I go back to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, as you mentioned, are about what not to do and what not to focus on. And in what I learned to do with the death of many friends and relatives was to say, calling them to the light, but calling them to their source, focusing on that source, how to the traditions of going back, how to let go of everything else and focus on the source. And I want to see that for our country right now. It's like, how do you keep an eye on your lighthouse? Where are you going instead? I think of that often with charts. We're heading into some rough waters. Where do you want to end up at the end of that? You may make a lot of changes along the way, but that will guide you at each of the corners. We're right now, the country's in that Bardo state, the breaking down of an old system. Where do we want to be? How do we keep our eyes on that prize, find the people that are working towards that, and use every possible event to take us in that direction?
Yes. No, that's right. Because we were referencing. So yeah. So February, my oldest sister died February 1st. My oldest brother died February 22nd. My cousin
Hmm.
died on the 20th. And it's like, whoa, righty. But
Oh.
again, it's micro, macro. There's
Mhm.
death in everyone's life, um, and and what addresses that. And then the Bardo state to read or to guide for the beloved for 49 days. And we were talking about it. And I go, the Tibetans kind of grumpy. It's all monsters and demons. And it's like, oh, well, the divine is, Neptune Pisces shapeshifting. I think the divine is eager to be liberated from the past confines of human imagination. Let's be
Mhm.
heretics. Let's challenge the
Mhm.
whole thing, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Going, who says, demons? But yeah, and then I love what you said about, so, well, and you maybe say it again too, but the Bardo state,
Mhm.
and we go, happens before actual death. Is that what you
Well,
mean?
we mentioned that in the case of my mother died of Alzheimer's, and you mentioned that one of your relatives wasn't all here,
No,
and that
they're
they're doing that Bardo state work, that review of their life, that processing before they die. They're in that Bardo state. They don't seem responsive to here, but you can feel the work they're doing.
there's huge mysteries here, and I don't remember growing up that so many people were the overused word dementia, right? It's like, but that's every. I mean, my neighbor just went to the funny farm. I prefer that term.
Hmm.
But the thing, my siblings were, and then my great buddy Robert Bly, poet, when he
Hmm.
started to
Hmm.
go loopy, and I go, Robert, let's think of it as Neptune transits, short-term memory loss, long-term mythic memory gain. He's like, I like that, um,
Perfect.
and
Exactly.
and I said, you've earned the right to. You get up on the stage and read the same poem 2 or 3 times. You do that anyway, and you don't need to be who other people want you to be. I think
Right.
this is important, And he's like, really? I go, yeah. And he's like, all right, okay. Um, and I think that's part of the fun we can have, which is to dissolve the imprisoning cartoons that others might have of us or of
Hmm.
astrology, right? And in
Hmm.
turn,
Hmm.
we dissolve any imprisoning cartoons we might have of others, that
That's the
were,
important other half.
yeah, that right, that it goes together. So these are mysteries, and I think about them a lot because it's liminal. Yeah, I like the whole country's in a Bardo state, right, and needs psychic guidance. So Robert Bly goes off, and the last years of his life he wasn't speaking much, and there was a time when he hadn't said like a word for over a month, and his buddy Coleman Barks comes to visit, translator of Rumi, and Coleman's doing a reading in Robert's living room. And Coleman forgets his lines, and Robert says them and then goes back inside. So we don't
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
A friend of
Yeah, you
mine.
can definitely see them visit. You can walking through the Alzheimer's unit with my mother. My mother was in and out of a coma for a year, and but you
Ah,
could feel all these spirits hanging around in the ceiling, sort of tethered by a cord to them. And sometimes they would snap in, and all of a sudden they were fully there behind their eyes, and then they would drift off again. And it was interesting what piece of long-term soul memory. It was not the details, but something like a poetic resonance or something that really hit the core of who they are, that brought them back right there behind their eyes for a minute and then float off like a balloon.
yeah, and we gather that story. We gather these things, and my friend Nian McAvoy, a wonderful, wonderful person who's been in a coma for the last 3 years. We don't know what these between world things. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
it. But he wanted
Mm-hmm.
me to meet his late 90s grandmother, whom I hadn't met, and maybe even talk astrology with her. But they said she's a little loopy. I'm like, I
Well, perfect.
I
Right.
go with that. Somebody's mad cuckoo thing. My
Hmm.
brother saying, I have a team of sexy assistants in the basement. I go, that's great. Let's go work out with them. Or, I mean, I'll go with anyway. So I walk into the room. I haven't met this woman before, and she lights up, and she goes, oh, I haven't seen you since the Tsar's court. And her
Wow.
family was like, oh, we're so sorry. I'm like, no, I'm going there. I'm going there. So for no
Hmm.
justifiable, rational reason, she was full of 19th century Russian court gossip.
Wow.
Yeah, and so people tapping in, people say past lives. It's like maybe past lives, or just tapping into Akashic records, or
Right.
we don't know. But I think
Or
like
is that the mythic dream? Usually find the truth in the mythos that's being played out there, but the characters and the scenery may be different.
yeah, and I say just again quintile with it. Go along with
Hmm.
the thing.
Hmm.
Don't spiral out of polarity. Tyranny runs on polarity. And tyranny does terrible things, which makes us polarity, which it feeds on. So it's a huge assignment for us to not be snookered into feeding tyranny by polarity opposition.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love John Michael Greer, learned druid, saying,
Love him.
if you, oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, if you want people to get nothing done but conflict, convince them they're on one side of something, and you'll only get heat. What two needs is three. This is very in us now. What two needs is three, which is the unifying story. We're all in this thing together, especially now. huge
That's beautiful.
opportunity
Hmm. Hmm.
because there's enormous power in awakened betrayal. Right. So for all of our team, I mean, there's in social media, which could use some improving everywhere. But people are like, oh, you people who voted for Trump, well, you're getting what you deserved. It's like, no, no, no. They're allies. They're allies. We're crafting a story. Welcome. You've been betrayed. You know, we've all been betrayed. Let's find a common story, and let's get down to defining like what's the function of government and what is wise leadership. And people never mind being ask stuff, especially
Hmm.
Saturn stuff. What's your
Hmm.
definition of
Hmm.
desirable government? You know, and so and then betrayal. Going, I voted for right wing cuckoo people. I did this thing, and now I'm losing my health care, and I'm losing my job, and I lose, you know, and I move. I just, you know, just and it's like so. It's horrible, and it's also liberating. Going,
Hmm.
all right, okay. Um, I love Alan Watson says, no sense clinging to the rocks that are falling with you. Right? So we just like accumulating these things and carrying them in our pockets, right? To liberate. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a wonderful image. And we're heading into the new moon in Pisces on Thursday, and
yeah.
that moment of a new dream for the year, that the last new moon of this old astrological cycle, and we're talking about what that in big picture, but every year there's the letting go, the dissolution, the sensitivity, the vulnerability, the chance to dream of Pisces that moves into brash action when everything goes into Aries. And this is really this weekend, we're feeling this intensely as we have at the moment. The moon will be conjunct the sun in Pisces, Saturn, Mercury, North Node, and Neptune all in this sensitive Pisces. But as you know, it's going to be like the beginning of a new spring when, and with all the floods and problems and storms, but as Saturn and Neptune head into Aries in the end of March and April, and even just the fact that Mercury heads into Aries on Monday and the moon heads into Aries on the weekend. We've got this, but first we have to make that work, to make that Aries energy work. We have to have a dream that it can empower. Otherwise, it just can become static. But so this week is a really good time to come back to your dream. What is your dream? What would you like to see form in the next year?
And the Mars Saturn, how you know what is your deepest desire and your deepest dedication? Um, and I like working with the planet parts of ourselves. You know, each has a skill. I'm really increasingly viewing astrology in its most deep, wonderful form as a guide to how to be a fully participatory Earth citizen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
these skills. So the new moon at 9 plus Pisces, the Sabian symbol for that, right? There's metaphoric images for each degree of the zodiac, old tradition, always being reworked. We use some humans made them up, so if it fits, that's good. No, no. But I love this new moon at 9 plus Pisces, which is aviator, sails across the skies, master of the high realms, setting in motion projects that will benefit the next 7 generations. We go, all right, that's a good generation,
Beautiful.
everybody. Let's do it. Right.
Let's do it.
And, you know, a lot of astrologers in podcasts, you know, in the last year or whatever that I would be on, um, Israeli astrologers who were remarkably removed from reality, I have to say, going, whew. But anyway, they're like, well, what do you think about Neptune and Aries? I go, it depends on what we do now. Whatever we imagine will quicken, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not what's going to happen to it. It's like how to participate in a desirable vision that we want to bring alive. And I think Saturn, a part of all of us, it's how we define things, it's authority, it's our autonomy, and its skill in all of us is to define things, to dedicate, to take vows. But here's my heretic self. But I think Saturn is terrible at, well, how are we going to do that? And we go, no,
Right.
Saturn's job is not how. And when we burden it with how, it just downloads centuries of ancestral futility, right? So I'm currently working. Saturn's job is what, not how. Jupiter and
Mm-hmm.
Uranus, parts of ourselves go, we'll do how. Do
We'll
do
do that.
common sense
We'll do
things.
that. And then Saturn can come in and scaffold it, but it cannot decide the process.
Right. Well, we create the template, and then invite in that which animates it. So yeah, yeah, we know each other pretty well. But so for the last year anyway, I've been enchanted by the fact that the word
Mm,
vessel means contain in all languages, means container and boat. So I love that.
that is
So all of us,
beautiful.
we're crafting our vessel, we're crafting our container of dedication, and then we're going to get in it and set sail. Like Inanna and her friend and her little coracle. It's like, what kind of boat do you have? And that's just to go back to Pope Francis for fun. And it
Mm-hmm.
is all, well, where do I stick him? Well, I have him somewhere. Oh, you have him there. So Pope Francis Sagittarius, um, and which is the incarnational agent of Jupiter. I don't say ruled by anymore. I go, we're throwing rules out. Incarnational agent of Jupiter, and we
I
go,
like that.
well, where's
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter? And we go, oh, it's in the next sign in Capricorn. um, to practice knowledge, to practice wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
love his Jupiter's Sabian symbol degree. It's a party of campers packing their canoe at twilight, the ability to navigate dark water. It's like, oh,
Mm,
oh.
that
So
is
our
beautiful.
vessel, our canoe, our capacity to navigate the underworld, And, last night in the Trickster Council, I convene on, once a week. Um, you know, I said the Sabian, Pope Francis. I mean, because you could go, oh, the Catholic Church terrible, and the doctrine of whatever, and indigenous people, and crimes against women. And we go, yes, and he's our pagan Pope. Jupiter
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
Gemini says, for all of us to cultivate complexity and nuance. No one person, no one thing is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so his Saturn in Pisces, the Sabian for it is rich and poor alike pour out onto rain-drenched streets in a joyous rebirth celebration. It's like, no, he really means it. And he really cares about the earth, and he really cares about democracy, and he really cares about animals and plants, and
And diversity.
diversity, and yeah, all of that, and we root for him. His lungs are in challenging shape. Lungs are grief, so
Mm-hmm.
I think it behooves us to take on the grief, um, to lift something off of him. And oh, is that thunder?
That is snow falling off our roof.
Well, that's very exciting. Well,
That was very exciting.
that's also an augury. Like,
Yes,
whoa,
yeah,
okay,
the spring is coming.
yeah, right. And
Mhm.
it's loud,
It's loud.
in a good way. It's like, woo,
The winter
movement.
falling away. Right.
Yeah. So so I like that Venus stations at 10 Aries now, and then retrogrades, which is ruler of a nation. It's quintile to the U.S. Pluto, going, would you all like to try a democracy? Go back
Mm-hmm.
to indigenous teachings. That might help.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then it goes all the way back to 24 plus Pisces, whose image is um, rooting corruption out of the clergy, right?
Mm.
And that's for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
To any
Mm-hmm.
form of clergy, any spiritual teachings, any whatever. Now we're back to Thor's hammer and Venus cahooting. We've got
Yeah.
themes.
Rooted, yeah, and corruption and the people who have mistaken Cortez for Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, no, it's all us, and that's the Pluto and Aquarius. It's like, what I've been saying to myself and others after the election is like, all we've got is us now, but us is quite a lot. And that's why I go to the anarcho, the intelligence of community, and Pluto and Aquarius says the toxic mimic of community is a cult.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a cult. It's a cult.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the occult is the antidote to cults, right? Um, there's a great book called The Occult Features of Anarchism about how
Mhm.
anarchism and community really comes out of the realm of magical participation. It's like, I knew it. I knew it. So can Americans discern the difference? And that's here comes quintiles.
That's
Because
going to be the question.
what? Sorry.
That is the question.
Yeah.
That, and I do think, as we talked about before about our Constitution coming back to the Pluto return. The country's been back through its Pluto return. Now the Constitution, we're heading into that in the next few years, where Pluto returns where it was when the Constitution was born. And that has been a fascinating, and the idea that most after Pluto returns, after a Pluto aspect, people are often stronger than ever. and they go through that challenging time and say, remember why you're here. And I think what we're going through now is like, remember why we need the Constitution, and remember the vision statement.
Well,
Take it to the highest level.
an agreed upon story, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's under dissolving attack. Do we have a shared agreement, a shared public agreement? And it's like, yeah, so it's dangerous, but that's why I turn to participatory animism, right? Again, I like to say animism. It's not a belief; it's just good manners. And there's a smart black scholar, Taya Miles, who wrote a book about Harriet Tubman, great
Mm-hmm.
Pisces, with Taurus planets. So Harriet Tubman, the creator of the Underground Railroad, which we may need,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and she considered herself an animist. She said she viewed the planets as glorious, glorious guides and allies. And she knew about the deep water that would hide her and those she was leading to freedom. And she loved the heretical plants, the weeds that were good for healing, and the trees and the standing stones that were landmarks to guide everyone to freedom. And this wonderful phrase, it said, by the end of her life, she had become those things: a guiding star, living
Mm.
water, a bracing tree, a guiding rock. I'm like, oh,
That is so beautiful.
yeah, may we all become those things to which we're dedicated, right? It's really beautiful. And she said that, without and this wonderful other phrase that I want to give to yourself and your glorious Virgo self as well. It said, Harriet approached each day with luminous pragmatism. It's like, right. It's like put the 3 drops of that, going,
3 drop. Yeah, we need three drops of luminous pragmatism.
right. Because it worked. It worked. It worked.
It worked. And again, it's where am I going? How am I going to get people there through
And
extraordinary odds?
And Frederick Douglass also see these suppressed colonizer things, profoundly animistic. He would talk to the
Mm-hmm.
trees.
Mm-hmm.
Trees, which way do I go? Rocks, will you support me? Everything alive. And
All the good druids appreciate you for that.
Say what?
That's all the good druids appreciate that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, again,
And
I
it's
think,
listening to
I,
that.
what do we have?
Mm-hmm.
Again, our willingness to cooperate with nature's guiding genius and experiment, experiment, experiment. So, yeah, Uranus stationed at 23 Taurus, which is right. We just put this on the altar. We don't know it's where the sun was when Israel was founded at 23
Wow.
Taurus. So Uranus is stationing on Israel's sun. And when I was talking about that way back, a year ago after October 7th, which is Putin's birthday, just oddly. Okay. But Israeli progressive gay Israeli friends of mine were like, "Do you think Israel will continue to exist?" I'm like, "Not in this form. Anything anywhere is everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
all government structures, this is the
Mm-hmm.
death of American empire, right? But what shall we ladle out? You know, um, and it would be a miracle because it's really such incredible, churlish, appalling cruelty. The lowest. We've outsourced Saturn to the devolutionary nadir of our species in terms of cruelty, and and that's why it's a return to the what would it mean that this principle that Uranus really insists on equality, it transits a country, you know, and then we go, let's just go for the necessary miracle and the unrealistic vision of the community of grief
Right.
crossing all man-made borders, going, I thought Biden could step into that, but no, he had a moment, where he could have unified the grieving, and then also love of the earth, the people who work the earth, people who love the earth underneath corrupt leadership. So we might
Well, I
root
mean,
for that.
as I quote you often saying, I will vote for that with my imagination.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we're always voting for reality, right? Yeah,
Right.
right.
And that I will imagine it. That's part of the light that we can take this. What we can't do from the looks of all the planets is stay where we were. We can't go back. We can't stay the same. What can we move towards? Because it's all, that crisis with an opportunity. It's all in the mix. It's all shifting and changing like ice flows in the springtime. Keep an eye on where you're going. Keep an eye on where we're drawing people to. What's that light on the other side of this strange Bardo state?
Yeah, and because Uranus is nature's evolutionary genius, it has no category about success fail. It's try stuff. Try that.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Try
Try
that.
that.
Nope. Try that. Oh yeah. So I think it's a try stuff, not
Mm-hmm.
try it like, oh, it didn't work, cancel
Mm-mm.
yoga. It's like try something else. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Modify it. What needs to change?
right, and it's the Taurus Pisces conversation with Mars. Well, it's all conversing,
Mm-hmm.
right? A wonderful word, converse. But yeah, and so it's like again participatory animism. Um, Forge alliances with the dogs and the trees and the plight our troth to forming alliances, and then we bring in Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett's animistic novels, right? You know those witch novels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and Five Drops of Granny Weatherwax, right? Granny Weatherwax, a fabulous character in Terry Pratchett's witch novels. And she says, "Owl, owl, may I ride inside your head tonight?" And he goes, "Since you ask so politely, hop in." And I go, that's fun to try, experiment, and I do love always bringing her up that she's about to do some impossible thing to save the community, and everyone says that you can't do that. That's impossible. 1,000,000 to 1 chances are against you. And it said that she smiles in a way that would make wolves whimper, and said 1,000,000 to 1 chances crop up 9 times out of 10. So buzz off. And then she does the impossible thing. She does the impossible thing. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
5 drops of Granny Weatherwax into our brew if that appeals, right? So I love that, and then our own participation, in his great novel, I Shall Wear Midnight. The cunning man has come to town and created mob mind, um, that draws forth the worst, the most violent and cruel parts of people. That's a cult. It's a cult. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the young girl witch, her job is to dissolve that, and our job is to. It's a Neptune thing, right? To create the atmosphere that invites the best of people. Come on, this. And she says, the cunning man, the tyrant, finds purchase in all whose hearts are full of grievance. And I think this is really important. I've been working it for a year, and at first going, I don't have grievance, and then going, ooh, ooh, because grief is love, and grievance is animosity, is hatred.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was one of those things where I was driving down the road going, the fate of the world requires each one of us dissolving grievance in our heart. You know,
Mm.
Neptune, solve coagula, dissolve and reimagine. Um,
And
yeah,
we often shift into grievance instead of grief because grief can is so heartrending to feel.
it's a fending off of grief, I think.
Yes, I
Um,
agree.
and in the world, tyranny runs on grievance, like those people, and they did me wrong, and it's like, well, if we're all in this dream together, you know, why would we be scripting it that way? And I think Venus and Aries, quintile, Pluto, well, doing all kinds of cool stuff, but and she's going on a vision quest, does remind us that whatever she's a dance partner. Whatever we speak to in another is the part of them we're inviting to dance with the corresponding part of ourselves. So these are these. Yeah.
And on that, I'm going to have to stop. I could talk to you for hours. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you. A great woofy launching to your beautiful self, and Jupiter Neptune. All the power of stories and myths are part of finding their way into the world through you.
Wonderful. And how can they find you?
CoyoteNetworkNews.com. You can find the radio shows for free to listen to. Many things. There's Trickster Training Councils. There's personal sessions. But CoyoteNetworkNews.com will let you know all kinds of ways to play.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And you can find me at starcodes.us or rowanrobbins.com. And you can Google Starcodes and get my weekly article about the astrology of the moment. Take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Blessings.